Hello everyone. I am Dr. Dipti Patil, Deputy CEO for SME Chamber of India, and I welcome you all on behalf of SME Chamber of India for this wonderful webinar. So, on the occasion of Africa Day, we are delighted to have Ms. Andrea Kuhn, Consulate General of Republic of South Africa, Mr. Dean Hop, Head Trade Department, Mr. Chandrakant Saunke, Founder President, SME Chamber of India and Federation of Indian SME Association, Ms. Sakshi Kulkarni, Director, SME Chamber of India, to discuss on bilateral business and investment opportunities for Indian SMEs. Now I would request to Mr. Chandrakant Saunke to give a welcome address.
Thank you. On behalf of SME Chamber of India and Federation of Indian SME Associations, as well as our initiative, India-Africa SME Business Council, it's my immense pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Ms. Andrea Kuhn and Mr. Dean Hoff, who is the head of the Trade Department of the Republic South Africa in Mumbai Consulate. It's my immense pleasure to announce that we are discussing about the Africa Day today. We are aware that Africa is one of the best and potential partner of India and a friend partner of India, particularly in the South African region. We are aware that today's webinar will be giving you a very useful information, particularly for how you can develop your business in Africa and how you can take advantage of the support services, schemes, incentives, and other advantages made available by the African government. We are aware that the Republic of India and the Republic of South Africa have grown strong diplomatic and economic relations from 1994. They are putting very much good efforts and continue efforts rather for development of political connections, political association, trade, investment, and also we are importing a lot of minerals, any other products. We are developing communication and technology related activities, security, agriculture products, arts, cultural, sports, and of course, the human research development happening between both the countries. Friends, both the countries putting efforts for the connectivity between South Africa and India, but also they are providing a platform to the Indian and African countries and as well as other countries through this G20 group, ISBA group, like India, Brazil, South Africa Dialogue Forum, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, the BRICS platform, Indian RIM Association, that IORA platform. These are the platforms are very useful for the discussion as well as debate, deliberations, and to look at the grievances and the difficulties faced by the business community, and of course on the immigration part, where all the countries come together and they set up the platform to discuss for the future plans. So friends, when we're celebrating the Africa Day, we should look at more on the economic way, because currently we know that the coronavirus has taught many things to us. We understand the economical development happening these last 2 years. We have stopped our activities, but nevertheless we have continued our activities now. And this is the right time to discuss how we can support the Indian SMEs to explore emerging business opportunity in South Africa, and vice versa, how the South African companies or the individual entrepreneurs can explore their business and investment opportunity in India, rather strategic partnership with the Indian SMEs. Friends, I will not take much time, but let me give an introduction about the SME Chamber of India, which is playing very important role for the last 29 years. And the role played by SME Chamber of India is in a very historical way, because we support entrepreneurs to go global. We support the youth to become entrepreneur, and we support the existing companies to expansion as well as diversification. We are supporting the Indian companies to explore their business and investment opportunity in South Africa through India South Africa SME Business Council. We are aware that the South Africa is a leading country, leading partner, leading leader, or you can say, of the SADC countries. The SADC countries are also having very good support, very good opportunities, and through the South Africa, if we look at the South Africa as a gateway to SADC country, so it will be good for us to to understand more the possibilities where we can develop connectivity, we can understand the potentiality, and today's webinar will be very useful for the entrepreneurs, particularly exporters and investors, to understand what are the business and investment opportunity in South Africa, what is the initiative of the government, and how the South African government is inviting the particular Indian companies to set up business there. So I will not take much time, but I am very much thankful to Her Excellency, the Consul General of South Africa in Mumbai, and Mr. Hawk for giving a time and to take a discussion forward, because we met last week and we have discussed a lot of things, and we are taking a lot of initiatives for creating a unique diplomatic as well as the economic bridge between India and South Africa. So friends, let us take advantage of the thought process going on today at this webinar, and this webinar will be useful for us to understand what are the issues and problems while doing business in South Africa, or what are the advantages and the initiatives taken by the South Africa government, particularly for SME sector and particularly for Indian companies, to secure the interest of Indian companies while when we are developing our economic and diplomatic relationship. With these words, I'm thankful to Her Excellency. Now I invite Her Excellency to give a opening remarks on this matter, and then we can have a Mr. Hawk to give a presentation, and we can have a question answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salonke, and also to the members of the SME Chamber. We really appreciate the opportunity to address your members this afternoon. The SME sector is one of South Africa's most critical sectors, and in this regard, we view the SME Chamber as an important partner in nurturing and growing South Africa's economic ties, as well as fostering deeper ties with India. We therefore want to thank you for celebrating Africa Month and Africa Day with us. Thank you for this opportunity to also engage with your members. South Africa and India have strong relations, and we look forward to celebrate 30 years of diplomatic relations in 2023. Relations have matured into a strategic partnership with a specific focus on advancing and deepening the trade and investment relations to the mutual benefit of both our countries. There is a clear commitment to ensure that the firm and solid relations will result in significant improvement of our trade and investment relationships. The legal framework to cooperate in identified key priority areas have been established. It is therefore for the participants in today's webinar to find these synergies and opportunities that will lead to an increased flow of direct investment and a balanced increase in value-added exports. The month of May, as you mentioned, is celebrated as African Month, as on 25th May 1963, the Organization of Africa Unity was established. In 2002, the OAU was relaunched as the African Union with a new focus on economic development and to create an integrated African continent. This year, we celebrated 20 years of the African Union under the theme, the Year of Nutrition. Africa's Development Framework Agenda 2063 was adopted by the African Union in 2015 and serves as the blueprint for Africa's development and economic integration. A flagship project of the Agenda 2063 is the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. It entered into force in May 2019 and trade began on 1 January 2021. To date, 54 of the 55 member countries have signed the agreement and 41 have ratified it. The Continental Free Trade Area is one of the largest common markets globally, with a population of 1.5 billion people and a combined GDP of 3.5 trillion, and with a projected middle class of 660 million by 2030. This is a game changer for Africa and holds enormous potential not only for the African continent, but for all its trade and investment partners, as it will fast-track the economic integration of the African continent, reignite industrialization, and boost intra-Africa trade. The share of intra-Africa trade exports as a percentage of Africa's total exports currently stands at 17%, which is much lower than any other region. It is projected that intra-Africa trade with the implementation of the Continental Free Trade Area will be at 52% by 2030. It will create a single African market for the free movement of goods, people, labor, and capital, and services. The elimination of internal tariffs will facilitate movement of raw materials and natural resources across Africa. It is projected that the implementation of the free trade area will result in a total employment increase of 2 to 3% in manufacturing and agriculture, and with a projected GDP growth rate of 3.5%. According to UNCTAD, Africa's export potential could reach $21.9 billion and cut the trade deficit with 51%. The SME sector will reap benefits from the free trade area as being an important driver of the African economy. Close to 90% of all enterprises on the African continent are SMEs, and it contributes over 80% of employment in Africa. It is estimated that there are around 44 million SMMEs in Africa currently. The Continental Free Trade Area will enable growth in the sector within Africa, especially by aiding the availability of inputs and raw materials at low cost. Africa is endowed with rich natural resources, holding 40% of the world's gold, 90% of the chromium and platinum, and it has the world's largest reserves of cobalt, diamonds, platinum, and uranium. 65% of the continent is arable land, and it holds 10% of internal renewable fresh water sources. The elimination of internal tariffs between countries will lead to a unified market that will aid product diversification and the transition from a single commodity or raw material exporter to value-added goods. This will facilitate Africa's integration in the global value chains and help diversify exports. Increased investments into the continent will boost domestic industries. For countries with established trade and investment linkages with the continent, it opens up an abundance of opportunities to tap into this larger, unified, and robust African market. India shares historical ties with Africa, as Indian traders, using the seasonal monsoon winds, sail to the east coast of Africa in search of products, thereby linking these to other eastern coastal regions in Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. The large immigration of Indian labor to Africa further cemented ties. The African Union is one of India's largest trading partners after the US, China, and the UAE. With a share of 8.52% in world trade, India's total trade with Africa in 2019 was valued at $68.33 billion in 2019. I'll just briefly touch on the SMME sector in South Africa that is the backbone of our own economy. It is highly diversified and operates in different industries, and there is estimated to be around 2.2 million of these SMMEs in South Africa. Its contribution to the economy is estimated at around 30 to 40%, with a contribution to employment between 50 and 60%. Recognizing the critical importance of the sector to achieve economic growth, a full ministry was established in 2014 to focus on enhanced support to small business and cooperatives, with an emphasis on programs to advance entrepreneurship among women, the youth, and people with disabilities. Support by the government in the sector includes development agencies, an incentive scheme, financing, skilling, but to name a few. In conclusion, and before I hand over to Dean, who will speak of the specific opportunities available for your members, to encourage them to consider using South Africa as your springboard or gateway, as you mentioned, into the African continent, as you optimize the benefits and opportunities that will become available. As I said, relations between our two countries has matured into a strategic partnership within a legal framework. It's an equal partnership based on a shared history, shared language, democratic politics, and similar legal systems. South Africa has the most diversified economy on the continent, with advanced financial services and banking sector. It is the top intra-Africa importer and exporter. It is also the largest outward investor into the African continent. And it now gives me pleasure to hand over to Dean. And I wish to thank you in advance for your attention. And I look forward to our continued engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dean, floor is for you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be addressing the Chamber and its members this evening. Without further ado, I'd like to begin my presentation. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From a population perspective, South Africa has a population of 60 million people. It's interesting to note that 40 million of those people are within the working age, and 63% are what we would consider the youth, under 35 years of age. In terms of gross domestic product, we have a GDP of $335 billion. Average inflation for this period, considering that inflation has been quite high globally, is currently running at around about 5.9%. We will touch on the trade stats as we go on in the presentation, but in terms of an exchange rate, we are looking at approximately 1 rand being equal to 5 Indian rupees, and 16 rand 50 being equal to $1 US. Some of our key mineral resources that we produce would be gold, platinum, iron ore, manganese. We are quite advanced in terms of IT, electricity generation on the continent. And you'll see that in terms of land mass, we occupy 1.2 million square kilometers, of which approximately 10% of that is arable in terms of farming. To address the impact of COVID, government initiated an economic reconstruction and recovery plan, which looked at 8 key elements, being strategic localization, that's localization of products in South Africa, supporting industrialization and promoting exports from South Africa to the continent and globally. Government also considered a massive rollout of infrastructure, which we'll touch on in the presentation, a new paradigm for energy, a key element in economic growth and recovery. We looked at gender equality and the inclusion of women and youth into the economy. Government provided an employment stimulus to create jobs and support livelihoods during the COVID pandemic. A renewed support for SA businesses, the fast tracking of reforms for a competitive and inclusive economy, and strengthening of the agricultural and food security. From a trade perspective, South Africa exported approximately $94 billion worth of goods in 2021, with imports amounting, 124 billion, with imports amounting to 94 billion. Of these exports, the high level was due mainly to the surge in commodity prices that we have currently been experiencing. And interestingly enough, manufacturing accounted for 31% of exports in 2021, with agriculture accounting for 7%. Some of our key items that we exported globally were platinum group metals, iron ores, automotives, gold, coal, diamonds, citrus, maize, aluminium, tractors and components, wood pulp and grapes, where some of the imported items would be petroleum, which is our largest single item, automotive cars, capital goods, telecommunication equipment, clothing, personal electronics, pharmaceuticals from India, tractors and components from India. Other items include books, electronic circuits, chemicals. If we look at the structure of the South African economy, we like to say that we are an export-orientated economy. Motor vehicles are our single largest manufactured export item, which go to destinations such as the European Union, the UK, and the US. China is the principal export market for several of our industrial commodities. But interestingly enough, platinum is primarily exported to the US, Japan, and UK. African markets for us are very key and account for 20% of South Africa's exports, specifically in the first 8 months of 2021. If we look at our top 8 trading partners, we'll see that it comprises of the United States, Sub-Saharan Africa, United Arab Emirates, the European Union, UK, Japan, China, and amongst those top 8 is India. If we look at the specific trade volumes with India, we'll see that our exports to the Indian market were touching on $4 billion in 2021, where our imports from India were touching on $5 billion. The Indian government per se would have a different figure to that of the South African government. Reason being is that we don't include gold and certain of the service charges or freight and logistic fees in those export statistics. And if we look at the specific basket that we trade with India, you'll see that coal is our predominant export item, followed by manganese, chemical wood pulp, iron ore, pretty much all your raw materials and natural resources. What we are working on and trying to expand on is the exportation of manufactured goods globally and not only to India. So as a consulate, our focus is on manufactured goods coming into the Indian market, where we're actively promoting this across India. In terms of the support that we do provide from a country perspective to our exporters, we have several trade agreements that underpin our export-related industrial policy. Some of those being the South African Customs Union, which focuses on South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, Eswatini, and Namibia. That's very local in our region. We also have key agreements with the European Union. We also have the African Growth and Opportunity Act with the United States. And as the Consul General mentioned, the African Continental Free Trade Area, which we'll touch on in greater details. Supporting this export-led economy would also be incentives offered in our special economic zones. We have 13 special economic zones in 8 provinces, which you would refer to as states. Certain of these zones have a specific focus. So if we look at, for example, in the Western Cape, which is more famous for Cape Town as a tourist destination, you'll find that we have one there called Saldanha Bay. Saldanha Bay is being established as an oil and gas servicing hub to service the rigs across the African continent. So now instead of taking your rigs, for example, from Angola or Nigeria to Singapore, we offer a convenient service in Saldanha Bay, cutting down on time it takes to actually service those rigs. In terms of the African continent, the CG touched on some of the key factors, but needless to say that there are 54 signatories out of 55 countries. 41, I believe, have now ratified the agreement. The agreement came into effect on the 1st of January 2021, and the market presents an opportunity of $3.5 trillion in terms of GDP by 2025, a market of 1.5 billion people, 52 cities that will have 1 million people or more, and a middle class by 2030 of 650 million consumers, which itself is a massive opportunity for Indian companies to look at taking advantage of. In terms of where the benefits lie and where the investment opportunities are, we believe that South Africa presents itself as an ideal gateway into the continent. Africa, as you know, is endowed with massive resources in terms of agriculture and natural resources in terms of minerals. The continent is also home to a very dynamic and young workforce that is rapidly urbanizing, moving to the cities. There are massive infrastructure opportunities that are in place in Africa. Africa needs energy, it needs roads, it needs ports to help it with its development. Interestingly enough, we are able to leapfrog in terms of technology. So, for example, Africa went straight from the lack of telecommunications to the mobile phone, skipping many of the landline connections that were present. But in terms of specific opportunities for the continent, we're looking at oil and gas, which has presented itself as a big opportunity of late in Mozambique. If we look at specifically in the neighborhood of South Africa and in Namibia, manufacturing from a low industrial base on the continent, there are opportunities to develop value chains across the continent. Items such as pharmaceuticals, food, beverages, wood products, metal beneficiation, and consumer goods. If you're looking at a population of 1.5 billion, then and a consumer base of over 650 million people, these people will need personal care products, food products, leisure products, for example, which is there to be developed. Indian investment in South Africa is well established. We have over 150 companies doing business in South Africa. Many of the well-known companies and multinationals are present. So, for example, to name a few would be Wipro, Aegis, Cipla, Tata, Jindal, Mahindra, all actively participating in the South African economy. The last I saw, the impact in terms of job creation has been over 21,000 jobs. And according to figures in 2020, we saw that capital investment into South Africa from India is over 17 billion rand, which is over $1 billion across numerous sectors of the economy, sales, marketing, automotive, IT, pharmaceuticals, and many of those companies that have established themselves in South Africa are using South Africa as a base to export into and to do business into the rest of the South African continent, taking advantage of our infrastructure, our financial services that are present in the economy, and relationships that South Africa does have with the rest of the continent. From a sectorial perspective, South Africa, as mentioned, is divided into provinces, and this graph and map ideally represents most of the opportunities and the sectors present across each province. Gauteng in the middle, the small state in the middle, is the heart of economic activity in South Africa. And in terms of activities, you'll see that it's strong in financial services and business services, IT, logistics. It's home to the Johannesburg International Airport, where most tourists and business visitors would arrive as they first stop into South Africa. It's also strong in automotives, machinery and equipment, chemical products and pharmaceuticals. Another well-known province would be KwaZulu-Natal, which is home to over 1 million third-generation Indians. And in that province, you'll find that tourism is quite strong, automotive production, with KwaZulu-Natal being the home of Toyota in South Africa, petrochemicals, clothing and textiles, manufacturing, forestry and wood, and transportation. Another key province that is probably well known to the Indian population would be the Western Cape, probably famous for Cape Town and the wine route. And key sectors in that province would be tourism, financial services, agriculture and agro-processing, petrochemicals, clothing and textiles. In terms of what opportunities lie in the South African economy and across these provinces, we've grouped it according to sector. So you'll see that in agriculture and agro-processing, opportunities are present in fruit and vegetable packaging, fruit juice processing, the processing of soya-based products, meat processing, aquaculture, expansion of the dairy value chain, indigenous plant and flower growing. In terms of minerals and mineral beneficiation, we're looking at opportunities such as the manganese value chain, the vanadium value chain, the ferrochrome production, and revitalizing the chrome value chain. Also, if we consider the green economy, opportunities lie in platinum group metals beneficiation and the development of a fuel cell industry, manufacturing, the heart of our exports, for example, into the rest of the world. There's opportunities in motor vehicles, parts and accessories, machinery, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, clothing and textiles. Advanced manufacturing is also a key sector for us, where we're looking at energy storage, electronics, aerospace, fuel cells. In terms of services, it's outsourcing, it's IT, it's tourism, and the ocean economy is another key sector, where we're looking at servicing shipbuilding, maintenance of ocean-going vessels, and servicing the oil and gas sector. And then we also have opportunities in water infrastructure, agro-processing, logistics, and recycling in terms of the green economy, in addition to your solar and wind opportunities, both in terms of a government program and also in terms of supporting the private sector in taking some of their operations off-grid. The reasons to look at investing in South Africa would be our excellent quality of life. We have a favorable cost of living, a generally easy environment to live in, to do business in. We have a multicultural population. We have a world-class hospitality sector. We have a young and eager labor force, many of which are going through tertiary education system that's well set to provide the skills necessary for business. We have a diversification of skills. As mentioned, we have world-class infrastructure and logistics. Our ports and railways are in place. We have large infrastructure development underway to support our growth as an economy. We also have advanced financial sectors, which would help you in terms of doing business on the African continent and in South Africa. South Africa is also home to the largest stock exchange in Africa and a well-developed bond market. The abundant natural resources. We have many of the top listed mining houses in South Africa. We have expertise in underground mining. This is an area that we can also collaborate with India on, bringing that expertise into India. We have access to global markets through the trade agreements that we touched on earlier, the EU agreement, the AGOA, SACU, for example. In terms of the climate, we have a progressive constitution and independent judiciary that holds everyone to account. Law and order and the rule of law is key to South Africa. We also have the largest presence of multinationals, corporations in Africa, situated in South Africa. We have the most developed economy in South Africa, and we are the principal manufacturing hub for the rest of the African continent. And we are a vibrant emerging market, which has one of the most sophisticated and promising emerging markets, an affluent consumer base, and a large industrial base to drive long-term returns for business owners looking to develop business in South Africa. These are our contact details. We are located in Lower Parel in Mumbai. We're happy to engage on any investment-related opportunities, share information. In terms of exports, we look at promoting South African exports into the Indian market. Usually we refer Indian companies looking to export to South Africa to the chambers of commerce in South Africa and to the Indian consulates, who are probably best placed to provide that information as we look at sectors from a different perspective and investment from a different perspective. With that being said, we are open for business. We're back at the office full time. We are ready and eager to engage either virtually or face-to-face. We're also happy to, at a later stage, come and do an in-person presentation to members and support any delegations that would be coming from India to South Africa. And likewise, when we have a delegation coming from South Africa to India, we would also call upon the Chamber to provide support in terms of meetings and B2B engagements. Thank you very much.
Dean, thank you very much. It's very interesting and wonderful presentation by you, because your presentation given all answers, all the answers to questions which I prepared for you. But nevertheless, we can have a few points discussion. Before I to bring our question for you, do you have any specific agenda set by your government to invite the investment during next 2 years, particularly from the sectors?
Thank you. Yes, we do. We have a division in government in the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition called Invest SA. And Invest SA is there to handhold investors from concept basically to shovel. So if anyone seeks to want to invest in a specific sector, Invest SA would provide an account manager who would be responsible for providing information, helping that company to plan an agenda in South Africa, introduce them to relevant stakeholders, for example, Department of Labor, to understand labor laws. For example, if it was a regulated sector, let's say, for example, electricity, they could arrange introductions to our energy regulator. So InvestSA is well placed to support investment in South Africa. On occasion, we do host inward investment missions where the department has previously funded companies to do business in South Africa. The last one was recently last year, where we invited companies active in the BPO space to showcase what South Africa has to offer in terms of infrastructure and the skill set that's available. So those opportunities do come from time to time, but in the absence of those funded opportunities, we're there to support in terms of logistics, in terms of guidance, in terms of facilitating programs and meetings.
Okay, good. Most of the Indians, when they visit South Africa, either they go for a safari or either they go for business for Durban or Cape Town or Pretoria or Joburg. So according to your views, according to your report, which is a province, upcoming province where the provincial government is more insisting the investment, particularly through the government, federal government to invite the investment in that region, which is the two potential provinces you can share here?
So I think from our side, all the provinces are equally well positioned to attract investment. You may find that there's certain key requirements, for example, natural resources that would drive you to Mpumalanga or to Limpopo. Or for example, if you're looking at renewable energy, you may look at the Western Cape, which has one of the highest levels of radiation in the world. So if it came to solar, you would be naturally driven there. Agriculture, you may look at the Western Cape, famous for its citrus and for its wine. Likewise, KwaZulu-Natal offers a lot of opportunities in terms of forestry. So I think all provinces are well coordinated with national government to facilitate and attract investment, considering the key strengths and opportunities that are present in each province. It's also interesting to note that incentives in South Africa are administrated from a national perspective. And then from a provincial perspective, you would find that there's that provincial support in terms of engaging with municipalities, perhaps special economic zones that are situated in those provinces or states, as you would refer to.
Okay.
If I may add as well, if you look at the map that Dean put up on the SEZs, you will see it is fairly broadly distributed throughout South Africa, because we also do understand that we have to develop our rural areas, as we also want to create jobs for people and not have urbanization that runs out of control. So that map is a good guide also to see where the opportunities lie specifically in those industries.
Okay. Your Excellency, I have a question for you. Since you are a leader of the, and premium country of the SADC group, so according to the South Africa as a leader or big brother of this African group, so would you like to understand, because we are celebrating Africa Day, so we'd like to know more about, the followers, the countries from the SADC group, which is the other countries which is growing very well. They are inviting the investment, and particularly friendly our environment is there, by security wise, by government potentiality wise, or providing the ease of doing business to inviting the companies. Rather, this is not a South Africa consulate's promotion point, but as a big brother of the SADC group of member, that I want to hear from you.
No, thank you very much. Yes, and SADC is the regional economic bloc where all the Southern African countries belong to. There's 16 members, and it includes also Mauritius and Madagascar, so also and Comores. So it also includes the island states as well. Of course, SADC is one of the economic blocs that are really doing well. In terms of the total exports of the African continent, they're the leading exporter in terms of the share of total exports. And South Africa we do not refer to ourselves as the big brother, considering that, you know, we were one of the countries that only joined the SADC group very late. Only when we became a democracy in 1994 did we gain membership to the SADC regional economic community. So we do see also that we have to give equal economic opportunities to our neighbors. So you will find that every of these different, the 16 states, that one will have the seat to promote tourism, one will have the seat to promote mining, one will have the seat to promote infrastructure. So we also try to make sure that all the 16 states of the SADC community are equally, have equal opportunity also to grow and drive the economies. South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, and Swaziland and Lesotho within the SADC region has got the SACU customs union, which is the oldest custom union in the world. And SACU is negotiating with India a preferential trade agreement, which we also are the opinion of that once we get that finalized, will hold enormous opportunities for both India and South Africa. But of course, Africa has many economic blocs. There are quite a number. There are quite a number of also trilateral economic blocs that's been created as building blocks to the African Continental Free Trade Area, because there is a vision that at the 2050, we will be a unified African continent. That's the vision that was set by the leadership of Africa. So you find that some of the economic blocs are doing better than others. Some of them have some challenges. At the moment, ECOWAS in the west of the African continent are facing some instability, but the African Union is taking the charge and taking a leadership position to also address that. But COMESA is one bloc that you can look at. That's one that's in East Africa. Also, the East Africa community is also one of the other blocs that's definitely worth considering. But if you need any further information, we can provide that. You know, it becomes very detailed. The presentation becomes much longer than what we wanted to give your members today. We just wanted to give them something to get them excited and to start the conversation. But we stand ready to provide that information at any further point.
Okay. Another point, you know, I got one question from one of my friends. Dean, for you, what are the products the South Africa government has focused this year or next year to export in India?
Okay, thank you. So the products we look at are quite diverse. If we look at India, we would say generally manufactured goods. So we're looking at automotive components. There's a lot of opportunity in the defense sector. We have seen a few companies from South Africa establishing offices in India, looking to partner and work with Indian companies on the defense sector. From our side, we're also seeing a lot of opportunity in agriculture products. We are the leading exporter of pears into the Indian market. We see that there's a lot of opportunity to grow the share of South African apples in India, and government is currently looking at additional protocols around avocados and lychees. Mangoes has just been approved. So we're looking at also seeing where we can support each other from a seasonal perspective. So when it's summer in India, it's winter in South Africa and vice versa, which provides the opportunity of seasonality in terms of exports of fruit. And then I think also from a food perspective, there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of common culture and history that we share, which means that some of our food items are very similar to each other. Biscuits, for example. But from our side, I think it's mainly around defense. We're looking at automotives. Interestingly enough, I saw that South Africa does export clothing and textiles to India, and India does the same to South Africa. So that could be another area of expertise to look at. And I think around technology sharing and just engaging, you'll find opportunities, business people will find opportunities where probably government doesn't know yet. So I think it's also about making sure that the two parties can speak. And if there is any interest in certain products, we're happy to facilitate and speak to industry associations back home who can also give us more in-depth detail about what products they would look at sending to India.
Okay. Your Excellency, I have a very interesting question for you. The COMESA and SADC countries, different groups, but whether SADC, if we have to set up business in, or we will set up business in South Africa, so we can move around the SADC members, right? Free trade. But similar way from the SADC member, suppose if I invested in any SADC member, I can also do free trade in a COMESA countries?
Okay, between SADC, COMESA and ECA, there's a trilateral agreement with the eventual aim to also include free movement of goods and free movement of people. So it's in the beginning of the process of setting that up. But definitely within SADC, that was one of the key priorities for us to make sure that interstate trade becomes much easier. And as I mentioned, when we started with the vision of creating One Africa, we decided not to do it in one go, like some other regional economic groupings have done that, but to do it with building blocks. So the idea was you do it regionally, and then eventually you link the different regions, and then it becomes a continental block. So that's why there's an incremental progress with these different economic regional blocks in Africa. Dean, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I think you were quite comprehensive.
Okay. Very interesting question is the banking services. How the local companies or SMEs are availing the financial services or financial support from the banking perspective, because most of the banks in African countries, they are very much reluctant to invest in a SME sector, or foreign companies, those are investing there. So what is the observation or what is the experience you have received from the members of investment companies, those came from the India or other parts of the world?
Maybe to begin with, to say that we have FirstRand Bank, a South African bank present in India, that also looks to promote trade between India and South Africa. That's the first point. We also have another bank called Absa Bank, which, although not based in India, does the same, sends their team across to engage with Indian banks and with companies. And I think from the financial perspective, the benefit there is that the South African banks are speaking to the Indian banks and the companies to understand what type of risk profile is present, how they can support trade between the two from a financial services perspective. So, for example, we hosted Absa for a dinner this week in their roadshows. And what they said is that if there's an Indian company based in India that's looking to invest or trade in Africa, what they would do is then consider through their relationships with Indian banks, the strength of their company, see how they perform in terms of servicing debt, what assets they have, and then they're able to offer competitive financial services to their company in Africa, based on the strength of the operations in India. If we look at South Africa per se, the SMME sector has quite a bit of support. Other than what the Consul General mentioned, we have what we consider a program called Black Economic Empowerment, which is aimed at building up Black business, bringing them into the economy. And one of the elements there is preferential procurement, where these businesses and small businesses fit into the supply chains of larger businesses and government. And with that, there's government incentives to support them. We have Industrial Development Corporation, which is a developmental financial institution, which also provides funding to these companies. We're also seeing that some of these small businesses are now reaching out, for example, to Indian business to partner with them and take technology or expertise into South Africa to service these markets. So I think there's a lot going on. Obviously, it depends from sector to sector, but it is an exciting time. And then if we look at India to Africa from a more holistic perspective, you have the Exim Bank offering support, and you have your Indian missions doing the same job that we're doing in India, promoting services and investment and trade in each specific country.
Oh, good. Thank you. It's very interesting information. Yes, ma'am.
If I just want to add, Dean did speak about the economic recovery and reconstruction plan that was launched by the government of South Africa to deal with the impact of the global pandemic on our economy. And one specific sector that is receiving a lot of attention is the SME sector in South Africa. So there's a specific program, there's a relief fund that has been geared towards because we believe they were impacted on the most, especially if it's SMEs that are women-run, if it's run by the youth. So we also see going forward that in these huge infrastructure development programs that South Africa is now undertaking, sectors of the development of this infrastructure plan are also allocated specifically only for the SMEs. So SME sector for the South African government is very critical. And as I mentioned, some of the incentives, also the financing that's made available. So yes, there plenty of support that is out there to grow the sector and support the sector.
Okay, good. Last question, Dean, you can highlight on that. How many countries have signed up FTA with the South Africa?
We have the agreements with the EU. We have the agreement with AGOA. We have SACU, SADC. What I'll actually do is share a specific slide with you. But offhand, we're looking at regional agreements. So when South Africa negotiates a free trade agreement or trade agreement, we look at it from the perspective of SACU. We don't negotiate bilaterally.
Okay.
So yeah, we take into consideration the SACU members, and that's where the starting point from our perspective is.
Okay. Your Excellency, you must be having some, any information about India and South Africa, having any economical cooperative, any particular association is going on, or what is the thought process continue?
Yes. Now, economic relations is for us one of the key drivers of our bilateral relations. And in terms of our bilateral relations, we also do it through a structured bilateral mechanism on a senior officials level that's meeting every year, and also on a ministerial level that meets every 2 years. And part of both these structures is a working group and a subcommittee on trade and investment, where we've identified specific key priority areas that was listed by Dean, and also how to cooperate, how to remove obstacles, how to increase the trade. I think one of the success stories since we've started this bilateral mechanism is the MOU that was signed between Invest SA and Invest India, which we are now happy to report will be renewed. We hope by October this year it will be signed. And also together with that, we will launch a microsite between India and South Africa businesses. So there are many of these success stories that has resulted in this close cooperation on a government-to-government level. Of course, with COVID, we couldn't proceed and implement as we planned, but now we are renewed, we are refocused, looking forward also to bring delegations from South Africa to India, and also for delegations from India to visit South Africa. There's a lot of opportunities. We also look forward with India hosting the G20, that our president will come to attend the summit. South Africa next year will host BRICS. So we do hope that the Prime Minister will also come to attend in person the summit. And of course, with both these international organizations, it's also attached to a huge business seminar. It has a big business focus. So we really do think that our agendas will be full. And that's why, Dean, I want to reiterate what he said. We stand ready to support whatever initiatives are there, and to take this relationship to the level that we all believe it should be. Trade at the moment, as Dean mentioned, is about $9 to $10 billion. We've set the goal to reach 15 billion. Unfortunately, with COVID, we could not make much progress the last 2 years, but with the Continental Free Trade Area that's now been launched, we do see that this target is within our reach.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If I can just add, So the number of agreements that we are party to is 8. And then maybe as a last comment before, as you close, I'd like to play a video. So just to bring that up now, because I think it's also quite a nice video that sets the scene and shows a bit about Africa.
Okay. Okay. So finally, I would like to, say that you said 150 Indian companies already established their business, right? And total $1 billion investment and 17,000 employment generated by them. Am I right?
Correct.
So, Dean, you must be aware that there are 90 million enterprises in India. In that, only 150 have already established business from 1993 onwards. So you have a big challenge now. So next 1 year, you have to take 150 companies to invest in South Africa. So then only we can celebrate next year our Africa Day in a bigger way. And
Yes.
also you should, think about from 1 billion to 10 billion so that only, we can focus more. So we have decided few things during last meeting with Our Excellency that, we should, focus on the plan for India BRICS SME Summit in Mumbai, one program here, one program in South Africa. Okay. Then we can plan some, other SADC countries meet in Mumbai or Delhi. So we will invite some of the delegations and the Indian delegations also we can take. So these initiatives, I think we should take forward because since Your Excellency, you are very much, interesting, you're taking more interest for particularly building a bridge. So friends, this is very interesting discussion and I hope that this discussion will take forward and, will encourage our Indian SMEs to look at the South Africa as a gateway to the African countries and enhance their business activity. Before we close, I request Dean to play the video.
Wouldn't you like to explore a country where two worlds intersect, where first world infrastructure meets an emerging market, where diversity is celebrated through its people and its sectors, where one of the most powerful economies in Africa embraces new opportunities, where science and technology enjoy rapid advancement, a land where innovation creates a dynamic environment for growth. The world's leader in mining and minerals, with nearly 90% of all the platinum metals on Earth and around 41% of all the world's gold. Home to 11 Nobel Peace Prize winners. And with the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Africa. It is one of only 2 countries in the world to have hosted 3 different World Cups, where a market of almost 60 million people provide you with the perfect springboard to access a continent of 1.3 billion people. It's where the impossible is made possible. Welcome to South Africa, a land of endless possibilities. A truly inspiring country. Welcome to the future. Invest in South Africa. Powered by Brand South Africa.
Done? Okay.
Thank you. Done.
So thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your sparing very valuable time. And Dean, we have met virtually at last. So let us take forward, and I'm thinking to visit your office by next 10 days time to explore the further discussion. And I hope that today's webinar will be very informative to our SME sector. And we are going to circulate in our membership and non-membership group through video, to the newsletter also. I request you, Your Excellency, if you have a printed written speech, you can share by email. Then also you can make a 2 pages information about whatever the information we have mentioned in our email, so that information can be included in our newsletter, and this will give the highlight of the potentiality in South Africa. Okay, so with this word, thank you very much, particularly for sharing your thoughts and views in the perspective of Indian SME sector. Thank you. All the best and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much and good night.
Good night. Thank you.